Okay, looks like we're live. Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Yoram Wijngaarde. I am the founder and CEO of Dealroom. And I wanted to say welcome to everybody who took the time to join. This is the first time that we do this kind of live product tour. Hopefully many more to come. I think it really fits with what we want to be as Dealroom, like very accessible and transparent and kind of out there in the tech ecosystem. We talk with our clients a lot, but I think having this kind of webinar setting is also really valuable. So I'm really honored to do this, and I will not do most of the talking today. It will actually be my two colleagues. First is Orla, who is our head of intelligence, head of content, and many of you have seen her before. And the other person is Pau. And I was thinking, I actually don't know what your title is, Pau, which I think is a good thing, but
yeah, so I'm a business development director at Dealroom. So yeah, leading the team of AEs on the B2B side.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I know what you do, but I just didn't know what name we gave it. So I'm gonna hand it over to you guys, and I will stay on also and jump in if I have anything smart to say.
Cool. So yeah, I think Pau's going to kick off with showing a lot of common use cases for the platform, and then I'll also take over and show how us as the intelligence unit use Dealroom internally for our work and which might be useful for others as well. But to also add, we'll have a Q&A at the end, so if people have questions, please drop them straight in the chat, and we'll try and get around to them and show you the answers in action as well when we get there. But yeah, Pau, you can start.
Fantastic, Orla. Thank you for the intro. And thank you everyone for joining the session today. Very excited to walk you through Dealroom and also tell you a little bit more about some of our new features, including the predictive signal, which is the latest algorithm that we've added onto Dealroom, which will help you discover very promising startups very early on. And second, what I'll also show you is the discovery capabilities of the platform by briefly walking you through how to set alerts, how to find companies that are relevant to you, and also explaining a bit how our clients are currently doing this. So before I dive into the platform, I just quickly wanted to address why this is actually relevant. And I know that the audience today is quite diverse as far as the professional background, coming from investment companies like VCs, but also corporates, SMBs, startups, as well as governments. So as you know, Dealroom is a leader in VC data and helping venture capital firms such as Sequoia, Accel, Index, Lakestar, and hundreds of others discover promising startups through data. But then there's also a lot of corporates that use us either on the corporate venture capital side in a similar fashion as VCs do, but also on the business development side, the partnership side, discovering companies that one can partner with or sell their services to is also really important. And we have great clients such as Amazon, Microsoft, SAP, and really many others that are using the platform this way. Also many consultants that are using the discovery capabilities as well, such as McKinsey or PwC and others as well as looking at breakthrough innovations through our platform, or startups that are working on great technologies. And last but not least, obviously governments, which are trying to better understand their startup ecosystems, which they already know very well, but obviously trying to find companies constantly that are highly innovative, that could be the next stars in their ecosystem as well. So this is relevant for all of you, and probably I've forgotten some of our other clients that are using it as well, since there's really hundreds of different applications. But without further ado, let me share my screen and show you the platform. And we'll start by looking into the predictive signal, which I hope you can all see my platform now, which is represented on your dashboard by default. And this is a new signal that we're extremely excited to share with you. It's based on a couple of different data inputs that we're tracking, and it's meant to help you discover new funding opportunities at a timely moment when they're round ready, companies that are showing very strong traction in the market, and that could potentially be great opportunities both for investors or for any other type of client. Now, if you hover on these ratings, which you can see are composed from 0 to 100, and by the way, what you're seeing over here are 3 segments. You see pre-seed opportunities, which are younger startups that have received less than $1 million in funding. You see them also Series A plus opportunities and breakout opportunities. And then next to them, you see the rating. All of these are obviously sort of the top ranking opportunities, so they have very high ratings. And if we hover on any of these, you'll see that they're composed of a couple of different factors, which I will explain in an instance. But for example, if we take this company InfoGrid as an example, which would be a breakout opportunity, and I click into it, you can actually see in an instance why the rating is so high. So first of all, if I hover on it, you can see that there are a couple of factors that we're highlighting here, which go into the ranking, one of them being completeness of the profile, which would look at the contextual data. So is this company in a segment, for example, that is very hot at the moment? Is the information also complete? Does it mean that it has received attention and maybe is relevant to look at? But also, is it hiring fast? So that could mean that the company has a lot of traction. So in this case, we see that it has 42 job openings, which is really significant. But also, what is the growth rate looking like? And if we scroll right down here, we see in the analytics that it has really been growing a lot in terms of the headcount, for example, but also the website visits. And there's really more things going into it than these, but I'll just try to touch on some of the most important ones. And then obviously the timing element, which if I scroll down, you can see that it received a Series A round of $50 million in December of 2020, which means that this was already a while ago. So this company with this kind of growth profile could very well be an interesting company to look at as far as potentially raising a Series B round or a Series A plus or Series A extension, whatever it may be. Yeah. Now, by the way, now that I'm already at the profile of a company, I just quickly wanted to highlight a couple of things that are really crucial here at Dealroom and that make us also really unique, such as, for example, the taxonomy that will obviously explain what this company is working on. We also have, obviously, the launch year, the valuation of the company, and other information present as well. But I'll explain a bit more about this when I go into the discovery part of the demo. But just going right back here, I just wanted to highlight 2 more things related to the ranking. First of all, you also have a rising stars widget here that shows you the companies that made the largest jump in terms of the ranking. And by the way, this ranking is refreshed every 24 hours for each one of these 3. And it looks at all the startups that are in the platform. So here you're seeing companies that have made the largest jumps as far as their ranking overall. And the fastest employee growth, which would look at companies that have made that are growing the fastest as far as their employee growth. So if I actually hover on this number, which tells me the employee number, I'll see the delta of the employees. So the change in employees in the last 12 months. So that'll show you companies that are high growth as well. Now, one thing to mention before I switch away from this is that you can obviously customize this very much to your liking. I know that you all have different preferences. Some of you are interested in seed opportunities and companies that are just getting started, and others are interested in more late stage opportunities. But others also have particular sector preferences, business models that you like to look at. Think about SaaS or manufacturing, whatever it may be, or perhaps even income streams that you're looking at. So if you click on this View All button, you will be able to filter these companies and really segment and slice and dice the ranking however you want by just adding filters on top of what's already been preset, which, by the way, you can also get rid of just by clicking on this X button. So you can really make this tailored to the types of opportunities that you want to follow, and perhaps even create alerts like I'll show you in just a minute. Cool. So this concludes the part on the predictive signal. And by the way, there's also a knowledge article on this that's very nice, that was written by my colleague Peter, which I will kindly ask Michael or one of my other colleagues to share on the chat with you, so you can read a little bit more on this in case you want to have some more information.
Yeah, and you can also find it on our blog and our Twitter feed.
Exactly. Thanks, Yoram. Cool. Yeah, the next thing I want to show you is the discovery part. And I'm going to focus on how to discover startups and scale-ups for this example. Obviously, you can also look at more mature opportunities by just navigating this companies tab. You have different possibilities that you can filter the overall data set by. If I click on startups and scale-ups, what's really just happening is that we're applying a number of preset filters over here to transparently show you what we are defining as a startup and a scale up. Should you disagree with us, for example, you think that mature companies should fall within this segment, no problem. You can click on the X button and basically include those. Or if you wanted to just focus on this, you could also make this a must filter and turn it blue, just like that. But for now, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. And for this example, I thought I could just imagine for a second that I'm a person that's interested in looking for startups in the UK. And that's looking at particularly fintech startups. So we have something to demo, but obviously you can choose whatever you want, and I'll just show you the mechanics, and then you can test it out yourself on the types of startups that you're interested. But what VCs or other clients will typically do is they'll choose, for example, a geography, which could be anything from a country to a city, anything, or a province or a region in the world. So in this case, we're choosing UK, for example. So now we're looking into all the startups and scale-ups that are UK based. And let's, for example, add the fintech filter over here. So we also have an industry. And so now we're looking at all the fintech startups in the UK. And the first thing that you can see happening is that the software is automatically suggesting matching sub-industries that match with my industry fintech. So it's showing me, for example, wealth management, payments, insurance, mortgages and lending, banking, etc. So if you want to select any of these and keep, let's say, going deeper into the industry, you could, for example, select payments, in which case it'll add itself as a tag over here. And now I'm looking at all the payment startups that are in the UK. And I might want to narrow it down even further by adding a funding stage to this. So let's say I want to look at companies that are in payments that have currently as their last funding round, a Series A round. So that's the last round they've raised. And now we, as you can see, we're already starting to get really granular, and we're getting a very concise list. And obviously this can help you with your discovery to narrow it down and make it a list that is navigatable. So over here, yeah.
And you can see the number of startups in that query at the top there, just above the list.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. And what we can see here, just to quickly walk you through it, is first of all, an Excel-like grid, which shows you different attributes of this company. This also, the mechanics of filtering and ordering and organizing this list work exactly like in Excel. So if I click on any of these columns, I could, for example, sort by this column. I could also click on a drop down, and if I'm looking at Growth Signal, it'll tell me the employee numbers, for example, and the change in employees. I could look at the 6-month growth as far as employees. I could apply a minimum or a maximum employee number, just like that. And I could also obviously explore many other columns that are available, or click on these 3 dots and rearrange the columns. For example, if I want to move the website visits next to the employee count, I could do that just like that. And then I would have them next to each other also over here. Cool. One thing that I want to mention is that the way that I showed you how to search is also, it is the easiest way, but if you want to know everything that is available as far as filtering, you can also click on advanced filters, which gives you a neat overview of everything you can filter for by its filter category. So we've actually curated, for example, the market and type filters for you already. So you can see, for example, filters on client focus like B2B or B2C, business models, income streams, industries, all the available sub-industries, which are many, as well as the technologies. And obviously you can mix and match these different filters. So would I be interested in finding payment startups that leverage AI? I could just add the AI filter and it would add itself down here. I could also look at tech stack, for example, if you're in business development, that sometimes becomes is an interesting thing to look at, to see, for example, which companies or which startups are using which types of tech stack. But I can also dive deeper into payments and maybe look at, payment orchestration or something that's very granular as far as a tag is concerned, just by adding it as a tag. And by the way, should you not be able to find something as a tag, you can also keyword search through the other query bar. Cool. Locations. So obviously location filters are available as well. Age of businesses. And by the way, I skipped jobs. So we also have jobs on companies, as I mentioned before on the signal. We have size filters, which can tell you about the employee number of the companies. The growth filters, which show you sort of the top growing companies in terms of like website rank or in terms of employee growth. Funding filters, when the last rounds occurred, obviously company status, founder details, which would be backgrounds of the founders. We've even developed an in-house algorithm to score founders, which I will explain in an instance. And then impact and diversity filters as well, which score companies depending on whether or not they contribute to one of the UN SDGs. And lastly, patents, which are also available. All right, so this is in terms of filtering. Each of these companies, by the way, as I showed you before, has their own profile. So if I click on a company, I'll be able to see that profile. And because I'm running out of time, I won't be able to run you through each of the elements of the profile. But as you've seen before, you have different analytics available, funding histories, valuations, tech stack, team data as well, and news on the companies. What I do want to show you is how to create dynamic lists or create alerts. So how to be able to source companies in a, you could say, automatic way. So for example, if I'm a person, an investor, or somebody who's doing business development, or a government that wants to follow, for example, payment startups in the UK that raised their Series A rounds, I could save this as a search and call this whatever I want to call it. So I'll call it Series A startups in payments, and then UK. I could save this as a search or export the list as well and save it at the same time, but I'll just choose to save it. And in doing so, I've just created an alert, meaning that every time there's a company that raises a Series A round that is in the sub-industry payments, I will receive an alert. And this will pop up over here on my notification center like that. I'll be able to also open my notification center and see all the alerts that are incoming over here. And excuse the loading because I have tons of alerts as I'm doing many of these product demos. But if you have a manageable amount, it should be a little bit faster. But anyways, I'm just going to skip this for a second to show you my alerts over here. So these are all the alerts, for example, that I saved in the past. And this is the one we just created a second ago. So if we click on it, we could revisit it. We could enable or disable the new matches to get alerts for these companies. And yeah, if you basically customize this and create a meaningful amount of alerts that that relate to your particular use case, you can stay up to date with everything that's happening that's relevant to you. All right. Yeah, so now this is already loaded. So here you can see all the companies that are matching my different searches like that. Cool. By the way, all these alerts that you create will also be able to be reflected on the dashboard. So you are able to create widgets where you can see all those alerts. And if you prefer to keep up to date per email, you can navigate onto settings and enable daily updates, which will send you a daily email with all the matching company alerts that you are receiving. And by the way, should you want to keep up with news flow on any of these companies, you can always add them onto a list like this, in which case you will be notified of any news that pops up regarding the company that you want to follow. You can also click on save here and add them into a specific list or create a list. For example, we could consider this a promising payment startup. And that's essentially it. I'll hand it over to my colleague, Orla, who will tell you a little bit more about how IU is using the platform. And also, should there be any questions, make sure to write them down and ask them in a couple of minutes during the Q&A. Thanks.
Cool, thanks, Pao. Let me just share my screen then. Cool. So yeah, I'm Orla. I lead the intelligence unit at Dealroom, and we're producing basically insights and reports based off the data that we've got here at Dealroom. So I get to show you some of the bells and whistles that our product team has built for us to use in order to help us tell these stories and uncover insights that are happening in startup ecosystems and in venture capital. So a nice place to start in terms of kind of all of the things that the intelligence unit work on, but also just a way to dive into some of these sectors is this curated content section of the site. So in here, you'll see a number of different things. So we've got some curated lists and landscapes and searches that our specialist analysts have worked on within each of these different sectors to make it easier for you to dive into interesting things that are going on. We've also got our reports down here that we publish regularly. We're going to have another one going out in a couple of hours on InsurTech, which will be launched at the Digital Insurance Agenda conference here in Amsterdam. But this is a nice place to kind of explore different geographies and sectors and the latest things that are happening there. And yeah, it's quite a fun way to dive into some of the data. And you can quite quickly drill down into areas that you're particularly interested in. So at the top here, you can hit a filter. So if we're interested in industrial tech, for example, it will filter everything below so that you can now see that there's lots of curated saved searches on advanced materials or on industrial robotics or logistics tech. And if we have a look into some of these, it gets even more granular. So within industrial tech, within industrial robotics, then we've also categorized these companies down to warehouse automation, construction robots, sea and subsea robots, drones and drone software. So it gets pretty granular pretty quickly. These are things that have been created by the analysts in the intelligence unit, but you can also create these landscapes yourself. But when in your Dealroom account, so it can be useful to kind of help map your kind of thinking about a sector, but it also does handy things like here you can see it adds up all the combined funding that these startups have raised, so you can see the relative sizes of the buckets. So here, for example, this is like quite a big segment because there's lots of startups in there, but less has been raised than in warehouse automation. Maybe that's a more capital-intensive area, for example. And the curation that happens within these landscapes also filters through into some of the algorithms that are used by Dealroom as well. So the sort of expert knowledge from our intelligence unit is kind of pushed back into the product and manifests in ways like it will go into the similar companies algorithm. It will take all of that information into account, but you can also on the profile of these companies see where they've been included in these landscapes. So it's included in transportation and cargo drones and in these different types of landscapes here. So that's where you can kind of go to start discovering companies. But some of the other kind of data visualization tools that I can show you. So first thing to say is that the query bar that Power showed in action here works in the same way across the whole site. So I'll be using it in a few different sections, but it always works the same way, which is useful. So here back on the Startups and Scale-Ups tab, so you can see these companies below, but there's also this button here that says Show Stats. So if we hit that, we can now see the combined value of all of the startups based in this query. And again, we can start filtering down very quickly. So if we just want to have a look at the combined value of health tech startups, we can see what's been happening here. If we're only interested in those in Europe, we can filter for that too. And if you hover over, you can see exactly what the numbers are. And at the moment, this chart is broken down by cohort. So the different colors refer to different vintages of startups. So you can see at the top here, the lightest red is startups founded between 2015 and 21. And then going back to kind of 1990 and before, which is kind of interesting to see actually, because you can see that some of the youngest cohorts have actually created some of the most value. You'd expect kind of a value to be accumulating over time, so we may even see those grow even more in the coming years. Again, a few of the things that work the same way on different charts is that you can remove some of the bars that you're not interested in by filtering in the key up here. Which is kind of handy. And then we've got a few buttons on the right here as well to start viewing by different things. So the same chart, but here the breakdown will be by valuation. So you can see the proportion of value that comes from companies that are valued under 200 million and the proportion that comes from decacorns, so $10 billion companies plus and in between. Again, if you're only interested in unicorns, then you can filter out the others and see those there. And the reason that you'd see this bit of dip here as well is that, so this query includes public companies as well as private in some cases. Obviously, public markets have been taking a bit of a hit early the first half of this year. So if you were just interested in private companies, we could add in a filter to exclude public companies, and then you see actually among the private companies it is going up. Also fun to just explore all of the advanced filters on this as well and see how it changes the chart. But moving to investment. So within this transactions and funding rounds section here, we can see all basically venture capital type investment happening everywhere. And this is the chart and how it looks over time. So these are global numbers because again, we haven't added any filters yet. And this has got even more options for customizing. I'm not going to run through absolutely everything because we won't have time, but I was trying to show you some of the things that are possible. So again, the filtering at the top works the same way. So let's just have a look at UK. But this is showing an annual view, but we can have a look on half-yearly basis or on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, and so on. We can also filter, so the view of this is that the different colors correspond to rounds of different sizes. So the lightest blue, or the blues are kind of the smallest rounds, going up to the kind of mega rounds in the red. So if we just wanted to see what was happening in mega rounds, we can do that in the same way. We can also have a look at this so here we can see how the overall numbers are kind of looking, but it's hard to see, what proportion is actually going to those different buckets in this view because it's kind of a bit too noisy to see. So we can have a look at it in 100% scale so that you can see actually an increasing proportion of investment in the UK has been coming from mega rounds in the last few years. That's quite a clear trend there, which is interesting. We can also have a look at where this investment is coming from. So we're filtered on UK, but now we can also see, of the 20 billion raised this year, 5 billion has come from domestic investors, 2 billion from other European, cross-border European, 8 billion from US, etc. We can again see this on 100% scale so that we can see how that's kind of been changing. So potentially more investment been coming in from kind of US and Asia in recent years. We can see that for investor types as well. So we can see what proportion is coming from kind of traditional VCs versus corporate investors or others. So maybe crossover funds or family offices, angels, things like that. So yeah, loads to play around with here, which I would recommend diving into. And then we will move on swiftly to the investment heat map that we've got here, another super powerful tool, so the default view that you're seeing here is looking at funding in basically some of the biggest European countries, but this is all customizable as well. So at the moment, we've got the top that it's showing, it's kind of sorted on the 2021 numbers, but we can also have a look, and this will rank the countries based on the 2022 figures. All of these geographies are editable. So if we wanted to add in, let's say the US, it might because it's a heat map, it might make everything else kind of blank out a little bit. Yeah, there we go. But we can see the US in there. It also doesn't have to be a country, so we can add in a city. If we want to compare cities and countries or regions or continents, we can add all those in. And then to remove them, there's just, you hover over and there's a little bin at the end here, and you can get rid of them, whichever ones you want. And then you can also, again, change this to have a look at it on a quarterly basis. So this is having a look quarterly or monthly. We can change the years that we're interested in. So we could just go up to 2012, but the last 10 years. This will update. And then we can also change the view. So because we're now looking at these 10 years here, if we click this button, we'll now see it as a bar chart. So this is showing 10 years worth of investment into these countries. Or we can see how this is changing over time in a line chart. Obviously, we've got a dip here because we're only halfway through 2022. So we could change the view of that. And then that shows you kind of what's been happening over time in these different geographies and how much it's been taking off. So that's quite fun. If you want to edit any of this bit, when you're in this view, you basically go back to the heat map section, and then you change whichever countries you're interested in, and then switch back to the line chart view again. But that's just for funding. So we do have a few other things in here as well. Also, so this is on amount, but you can see the number of rounds, so the deal count basically by toggling here. And there's also some saved searches at the top here, so we can look at top global hubs, and then it will change all of the locations, so it shows you the biggest tech hubs in the world. So actually, again, just to show the filters on these, because it's quite an interesting thing that's emerged this year. If we add it back, 2022 back in, and we filter on fintech, we can see that London has actually raised more investment than any other hub in fintech this year, including the Bay Area, by $1 billion, which was something that we discovered when we were just playing around with this tool ourselves, which was quite nice. Yeah, so then at the top here, there's we're in the VC investment section here, but we can also have a look at new funds. So this is basically funding that's been raised by, in this case, I've added venture capital firms into the filter here. So we see that 6.3 billion of new funds have been raised by UK-based VCs this year. That's outpacing last year already, just for the UK. And Germany is more than 2021's total already this year. Also, with this heat map, from any of these views, if you click on the square, it will take you through to a view where you can see the whole chart, so all of the underlying numbers.
Orla, maybe it's also cool to show in the previous slide page that you can add a name of an investor, so like SoftBank or something.
Yeah, true.
Or
so
in the filter, I mean, yeah.
In this section, VC investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could put SoftBank.
Yeah, there are a couple, but I think it's the one below.
That one, yes, SoftBank,
Yeah.
just SoftBank. Let's
Yeah.
see, yeah, so you can see, for example, how much SoftBank has been investing in these different geographies. How, yeah, I mean, it was obviously nothing before kind of first Vision Fund, but of these geographies, you can add in others if you want to. Kind of a lot going into UK, Germany, Spain. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so you can also add companies in the filter bar at any point as well. In the same way that back on the funding rounds tab, we could put in Atomico, and you can see a chart for their investments, and also all of the companies they've invested in underneath. Clicking on any of these bars also sorts the information by that year. It's added a filter in here. Yeah, back here, so we've kind of briefly looked at new funds, realizing that we're running out of time a little bit, but we can also have a look at unicorns. So unicorns is an area we've put a load of work in starting a couple of years ago, kind of tracking and documenting unicorns and all of the different flavors of unicorns. There's lots of edge cases, but here you can see the number of unicorns in these geographies. Again, you can have a look at that, how that's been developing over time. You can also have a look at future unicorns. So those are companies that we consider valued between 250 and a million and $1 billion, that are also kind of continuing to show traction. So yeah, loads of different things you can kind of explore in this section as well. But it's kind of endlessly, and you can spend so much time playing around with this. And again, for the unicorns, we do also have a whole section for it under the companies bit here as well. So you can see at any given time, right, this is the number of unicorns that there are, unicorns and $1 billion exits, so 2,500. And there's also a bit of information about methodology at the top here, and what we consider unicorns and everything else. But at that point, maybe I will pause and see if we've got some questions from the audience to go back to, or I don't know if Paul, Yoram, there was anything else that you wanted to add.
No, no, really, no. I think it would be great to see if the audience has any questions. Is worked through comments, I guess, yeah.
Yes, I think so. So yeah, there was a question about are filters changeable only with a premium account? Pao, maybe you're best placed to answer that.
Yeah, so filters can be added as free users as well. Pretty much the same type of filters that can be added as a premium user. The main distinction there is the amount of results that you can see as a free user, which is capped, and also the amount of page views that you have at your disposal. Yeah, and some data fields are also not visible as a free user.
Yes, I think some filters are also not available, but I mean, you can, first of all, you can request a trial. If your trial ends and you want another one, you can always talk to us. And as long as we don't get the idea, you kind of trying to game the system, but we're always happy to help. And especially if you're a startup and you don't have a big budget, where you can also always talk to us, and we're happy to help. I mean, as you saw, there is a massive investor database also here, and we really want to make it available to startups to help them fundraise.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about where the data comes from, because I think that's a question you get a lot, Pao, when you're having kind of client conversations.
Yeah, definitely. I can answer it. So it comes from I would say three main sources. First of all, public data that's available on the web. So we do a lot of web crawling, finding the best news feeds to get our information from, and then ingesting that and organizing it in the platform, and making it searchable by industry, sub-industry, and all the other categories where we slice and dice the data into. Second, we also collect data from governments, thanks to our government partnerships. We work with many different governments that share data with us. And that data is also reflected on the platform for everyone out there. So it all feeds into the same API. And also we have a lot of trade register integrations where we effectively get data from sources like the Companies House and other trade registers out there, the Chamber of Commerce here in the Netherlands, etc. And then last, also user-generated data. So as Yoram was saying before, we love to get data from entrepreneurs, but also from investors who enrich their profiles on Dealroom and thereby help make the data set better. Yeah, last but not least, by the way, just sort of as an additional data, we obviously also license data from other data providers to have the most complete experience and data set out there.
Yeah, we've got another comment on the chat saying that please add a unified currency option as well as currency conversion. The mix of USD and euros for European company funding rounds makes sorting lists a bit more difficult. Thank you for the feedback. I think to reiterate what Yoram was saying at the beginning, we are really open and want to hear from people about how we can improve and what data sets people are really interested in, because these such a fast-moving industry, these things change all the time. So yeah, do always let us know if you have feedback about the product or how it works, or what else could be included.
Yeah, but this is definitely something we are also working on, and letting users select their preferred currency, and then you'll have that kind of as a setting across the platform. So it is kind of in the works. Yeah.
And do you want to talk maybe a little bit about some other things that are in the works, maybe? Give a teaser of what's coming down the line?
Yeah, okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I didn't really prepare for it, but absolutely, yeah. So one thing, as some of you may know, is that we spend a lot of time on research, and so, yeah, a lot of people like the reports that we do. There are also briefings and other kind of content that's created. So we're making that more part of the product experience in this next 3 months. So what you'll see is that if you go to the curated content page, there will be these briefing notes included. So there's always something new there. And if you go to a company profile, you will see research like Dealroom research that's kind of relevant for learning more about the company. So that's basically one like really big change that you'll see over the coming weeks. Another big thing is following on to the Dealroom Signal that Pau showed you. We're also going to introduce rankings that are partially built based on this signal, but also on other criteria. So there will be like some rankings coming in. Yeah, that's also meant to get more startups also on the platform, and the more startups use the platform, the merrier, and that makes kind of the whole platform more valuable for everybody. So to kind of create a more network effects and a more active community on the platform.
Yeah, I should have actually mentioned as well the briefings that we create, the intelligence unit. So we've got different newsletters that go out every week in fintech, health, marketplaces, food, impact, and edtech. So do sign up to those. They are really good. I am biased, but they are genuinely really, really good. To keep you kind of abreast of things that are happening in the market, and what's important. And I just shared the link in the comments there. To reiterate this, we are recording this, so if you want to look back at what we've been doing so far, we'll be kind of getting this up on YouTube at some point very soon. And if you have any other questions, do feel free to reach out whenever. You can do so via the chat on the Dealroom platform as well. But with that, maybe we can kind of wrap up. Pau, Yoram, I don't know if you have anything else to add? No? Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. This is the first of these. So do let us know what you thought, and if we were to do it again, what we could do better or include differently. We'll hopefully do one again soon. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Bye.